morning. Welcome back to the Healthy and Happy podcast series. I am joined with special guest Tanden Bell today, who is an exercise physiologist and a good friend of mine. I've known Tanden for several years now.
Yeah.
I don't know, 8-9 years now.
Yeah.
And Tanden is one of the most knowledgeable people that I know when it comes to things that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the connection between exercise and movement and our well-being. Because if you're not moving well and if you're not able to move pain-free, it's really difficult to be emotionally or psychologically healthy. So Tanden, you want to give a little introduction about to yourself?
Sure. I attended college at SUU here in Utah, in Cedar City, and then decided that I really liked, it was exercise science is what I went into in college, and really enjoyed teaching people how to get stronger. And in that process, I ran into a lot of people who had pain when they moved. And so over the last 10 years or so, I've been trying to figure out how to take that pain away or teach them how to move in a way that they don't have pain. And I've loved it, actually. It's really rewarding to me to see someone who has had pain when moving get rid of that, and then their whole life kind of opens up to them. They give that kind of a new lease on that. So
how do you do that?
Oh, a lot of different ways, a lot of different modalities mostly I teach people how to breathe well. So there's a dyskinesis kind of in a lot of people in how they breathe, a lot of breath holding, a lot of postural issues based on breath. And that affects, just breathing affects your emotional state, right? So in the happiness world, or anxiety, stress world, right, which none of us have.
Right. Especially now with the pandemic and the holidays, and
people have been locked down and masked up and scared on purpose.
Lots of
a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But if you go into a situation and someone's breathing, you can easily tell what their state is, right?
Sure. Right.
That's not a relaxed, calm deal, right? If you breathe, if you exhale, it's fascinating. You exhale, your diaphragm stretches. And that sends a signal to your brain, like rest and digest, right? It sends this parasympathetic, like calming kind of thing. You can't be stressed out, your brain thinks. You can't be running from a lion if you can, right?
Yeah.
Like that's not lions running stuff.
Right.
So I just mostly teach people how to breathe well. And a lot of their pain disappears, their back pain or their hip stuff or neck things, because that stuff's so built into all the other systems that you correct that piece and then all the other things kind of start to fall into line. And there's other stuff people have to work on, but for the most part, teaching people how to breathe well allows them good movement or quality movement.
Well, and that's interesting, because one of the most effective techniques to help with anxiety is breath. And by taking control, you can always control your breathing.
Right.
And so when you're feeling like you're out of control in a lot of other areas, it's just by taking control of your breath, you can interrupt panic attacks, you can bring down anxiety, you can change the channel in your brain. A lot of people have a hard time sleeping or going to sleep. I'll have them do square breathing.
Yeah.
And square breathing is just that. It's you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold the exhalation for 4, and repeat that. And your brain has to concentrate on the overall square as well as the 4. And typically I'll have people do 6 to 10 of those. And by the time they get to 6 or 7, because I think 2 things. One, it changes the channel cognitively,
right,
and it gets your brain off of whatever you're
thinking about,
what you're obsessing about. You're thinking about your breath instead, and then it takes control over that system and brings the relaxation.
So awesome. The other thing that I've seen with weightlifting, right? So what you're doing when you're breathing is you're changing your intra-abdominal pressure, right? The pressure, your gut pressure, right? And there's a group of muscles involved in that: your pelvic floor, your diaphragm, your corset, your transverse abdominis, and then these little muscles that stabilize your spine and help with even load sharing of your vertebrae in your lumbar, mostly called multifidi. That team, along with some other stuff in your jaw and things that are neurological, that team, that intrinsic stabilization system in there, stabilizes your pelvis to your rib cage and allows you to be able to pick up really heavy weight if you're really good at that. So that requires more pressure, right? If you've ever squatted under like a free weight back squat, barbell back squat, you go to stand up under that bar and your core has to do something awesome, right? It has to, you have to inhale into it. You have to increase the pressure in your core because your spine, I don't know if you remember those little wooden snake snake toys, right? I have one in here. Yeah, right. So your vertebrae is kind of like that. It's all segmented, but connected together, right? So you take that and you try to stand up that squiggle snake, right? And then you start thinking about the components that are hooked to that for your body, even just your head. Human head's like 8 to 12 pounds or something like that. That's like think about bowling, right? Whatever weight you use bowling, like just say 10-pound ball, tape that to that squiggle snake and try to stand it up, right? Like not a chance, right? So if you're off a little, right, that's going to change. Then everything has to. But that intrinsic stabilization helps hold that snake up, right? Hold that spine in place so that you can load it, right? You stick a couple 100 pounds on your back, your core better be doing something or those vertebrae get squished. Yeah. So teaching people how to breathe makes them way stronger, which is really cool. Yeah. Really cool. And happier, right? Because then they can manage their emotions better. They can like regulate things that before their breath maybe took over or their stress took over their breath maybe. Yeah. Right?
Well, and any of you who have had back pain know that when your back is in pain, you can't move anything without moving your back. Right. And so it's and pain is kind of like that in general. It's when you're in pain, it's hard to be happy. For sure. It's hard to not just have your brain consumed with trying to regulate whatever's going on with your pain. Definitely. Right. And then you're cranky at everyone else. And then it's like this feedback loop, right? You get people mad at you and then it's nice to get rid of pain. Yeah, it is. For sure. What can people do to make some improvement in their breath? Yeah. And then maybe we'll move into some other pain kind of stuff. So just knowing your breath cycle, right? Inhaling as far as you can with still maintaining alignment of your posture, right? And your pelvis needs to be centered in the middle, your rib cage, your neck and head and chest and things like that need to be kind of lined up. Okay, so do it with me. Okay, so these cues, that's all right. These cues I got from Dr. Kathy Dooley. Her website is Immaculate Dissection. Genius. Immaculate Dissection. Yep. So these cues are ID cues from her. Pelvis even. Okay. Right. So you take your pelvis and you kick it backwards and forwards, right? You alternate your pelvis and find the middle. Right. So center the pelvis even, the front and the back, right? Side to side. We're trying to even the pelvis. And then you take your ribs and you don't let your ribs flare out. You pull your ribs down towards your pelvis. At the same time, we're going to go chest wide. So it's pelvis even, ribs down, chest wide, neck long, and then chin slightly tucked so that you're not up with the chin, right? So that your jaw's straight and you're lined up. Now that's your posture, right? If we're going to say good posture, that's what we mean by those 5 things. Looks great, actually. Okay. Maybe head back just a little bit more. Yeah, there you go. That's pretty common, right? Yeah. The headpiece. So lining that up now, you inhale wide, right? And you exhale tall. And you chase the exhale till you feel that corset kind of activate, right? And then you use that corset. If you're going to learn how to get stronger, use that corset as a shield, like a flexible shield to hold yourself. And you breathe into that flexible shield, right? And you breathe 360 all the way around. You feel it go into your back. You feel it go into your ribs, all the way around. In wide, out tall. Just run 5 of those. I like 5. 5 seems right. Most of us can do 5.
And what happens to most of the people that I deal with is that they start to feel different around breath 4 or 5. Things start to calm, things start to like line up, things feel more relaxed, right? That aware, relaxed state is good for them to learn new skills, right?
Yeah.
I'm teaching them how to move. It's a good state to be in and mentally to learn new skills.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's cool.
Anyway, there's levels to that as you can increase the pressure to get stronger, right? And so we add kind of a pressurization to that breath, usually on your back, moving your legs, doing different drills to teach you how to still move your arms and legs while you regulate your pressure. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Let's talk a little about exercise.
Okay.
And maybe a little bit about the connection between pain and movement a little bit more too.
Okay. So exercise, there's components of exercise that I think are pretty much essential to maintain a balanced, healthy system, right? By that, I mean kind of all the systems, right? Exercise affects almost every system in your body.
Yes, it does.
And so it's really a useful tool in steering your body in a way that you want. Or if it's been steered in a way you didn't like, to put it back. Yeah. And so the beginning phases is to go for I would call it, let's say, low intensity, long duration type of exercise, right? So when you begin a program, your first initial thing is a low intensity, long duration, we'll say a walk, right? And so you go for a walk for 40 plus minutes and you do that consistently every day. Let's say 5+ days a week, right? So you do your breathing, you do this walking. After a couple of months, it's time to level up the walking. You can still keep it for like a mental component because walking is very meditative, kind of, right? In fact, one of the best meditations I've ever done was a walking meditation. I felt like weirdly connected to everything during that. But anyway, you get the walking dialed in, and then you say, okay, I need to go from zone 1 heart rate to zone 2 heart rate, right? Because the goal really is to get your heart to be really flexible as far as health is concerned, right? We're just talking health, right? So as far as health is concerned for your circulatory system and your heart and lungs and all that, you need to train actually in zone 2, 5+ days a week, right? So you take it up to that next level, increase heart rate, you're lightly sweating. You could hold a conversation with somebody, but you're gonna have to take turns talking, kind of, right? On zone 1, you could talk the whole time, right? So you get this next level and you run it for 40 plus minutes, right? Over 90, this is my opinion. Over 90, I think you're wasting your time as far as health is concerned.
You may not be for a filler, for enjoyment, but in terms of your health.
Yeah, or fitness, that's a different category. People oftentimes confuse health and fitness. Those are not the same thing. So
good point.
We're talking for health, right?
Yeah.
What you want is your heart to have enough time to stretch out, right? So it has this amount, this stroke volume that it has. Everybody has a specific stroke volume, how much blood your heart pumps in one squeeze.
Yeah.
Right? And that stroke volume, the bigger you can get the stroke volume, the lower your heart rate gets to be, right? Because you're still pumping the same amount of blood with less pumps.
Right.
So the goal for this cardio, people call, right, is to get your heart to stretch out as much as possible with every beat. So it needs time to do that. If you take your heart rate up to a certain level, say the new stuff is HIIT training, right? Or this high intensity, your heart's in your throat, you're almost going to throw up kind of thing, right? You're doing a lot of lactic acid. That's your MO, right? You like that. No, it's
I'm going to a HIIT class this morning.
Well, it's really great. It is really great. It has its place, right? It is building more fitness, probably.
Than health necessarily,
Yeah. But there's also different components of endurance, right? And so your heart being able to stretch is one component, but you also have mitochondrial density, and you have these other things that play a role, and HIIT training does help the other things, right? So I think people should do HIIT or maybe repeat training. Fartlek is the guy who kind of pioneered that, but that go until you can't, rest until you can kind of mentality, right? Where you do sprints, say you're going to go for 20 minutes and you're going to sprint as hard and as fast as you can. Well, maybe I back that up, maybe 90%, right? but you go hard until you need to stop, and then you walk until you can go hard again.
Yeah.
And you just set a timer for 20 minutes, 15 minutes, like whatever your time is, and you just run that cycle. Yeah. And when you're done, you're done. I guarantee you, when you're done with that, you're like, well, you're toast. Right? Well,
from a brain health perspective and a mental health perspective, the HIIT workouts help to boost dopamine.
Sweet. There's
a specific exercise that's been studied where it's a 4-minute warm up and then 30 seconds hard, and they defined hard in the study as whatever it takes to make you out of breath.
Yeah.
The better shape you're in, the more it takes. Yeah. And then you go 90 seconds easy. You don't stop, but you go easy. And so you go 30 seconds hard, 90 seconds easy. Repeat that a total of 8 times. A 4-minute cool down takes 20 minutes to do. And scientifically it boosts dopamine.
That's cool.
So if you're struggling with, motivation and get up and go and mental focus and drive and energy, then you can, in fact, about a year ago, I recognized that I was low on, I tend to really gravitate toward endurance kinds. I like to go on bike rides and, long runs and those kinds of things. And if I just go to my default, that's where I go.
Gotcha.
And I noticed about a year ago that I was low on dopamine.
Yeah.
Just kind of struggling in here, and in the afternoons, my energy was low. And so I threw a HIIT workout in.
Yeah.
And after a few, about 6 weeks or so, I threw another one in, and now I do 3 serotonin type exercises a week and 3 dopamine type exercises a week.
That's cool.
For my brain health.
Yeah.
So
and that also has a whole bunch of other benefits to you, right?
Well,
or other health components.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Do you find that there's a max? Like, if I do 2 more a week of HIIT, then it's too much, or have you found like that?
Well, I like both, so I don't know. I mean, I'm doing 3 and 3, and it's working pretty well.
Combo, yeah.
I also, because of my personality, I tend to get bored with things after a while. So then I'll I'll spin a little bit, or I'll
I ride that train a lot.
Yeah. So I exercise every day, but I might switch up what I'm doing.
Smart.
So
keeps you being able to exercise for longer years or more years.
Yeah. I'm an old man. I've got several years left. I need to be able to move.
That's cool.
Anyway, keep going on that. So you get zone 2.
Yeah. So that's where you kind of want to maintain, right? Is to be able to throughout your life hit 5+ days of 40+ minutes in zone 2. Your heart and lungs and your whole health system, like circulatory system, is just going to be on point. Right? If you can manage that. A lot of us are motivated to do other stuff, which is great. Some of those, though, can be contrary to health, right? You're going to chase a fitness component. You might sacrifice some health component. CrossFit's a good example, not to brand any of that, right? Like CrossFit is really great at training elite athletes. But if you go in,
most of us aren't elite athletes.
Right? You go into that type of training and you haven't done the work beforehand, probably you're going to get hurt in that situation, right? So incrementally stepping this up, having a strong core, being able to breathe, being able to last long enough to do a workout, is the beginning stages of getting to, if you want to do CrossFit, right? Cool. Like you just have to do the pre-work.
Take a few years to get there.
Yeah, or even just a few months, like would be helpful.
Right.
But learning how to move properly, because a lot of the training now is time intensive, right? Or maybe that's not the right way to phrase it, but it's AMRAP stuff.
Right. Trying to get as much.
Yeah. How much can you do in a short amount of time? A lot of times that sacrifices technique, which then
almost always, I think,
because of how motivated you are, right, to be number one. So it's smart to move correctly first. And then, see how many you can of quality, perfect movement. How many can you do, right? That I find to be a lot more beneficial for people than just smashing out a workout and then suffering through the aftermath of, like the badge of honor of being injured, from
the stupidity of it.
Doing this.
I almost always have some stupid injury going on because I don't listen.
If you're highly motivated, it's hard, right? If you're highly motivated to succeed in a physical
or competitive, or you depend on it. I depend on it a lot for my fillers. to boost my emotional reserves. And
That's what you mean by fillers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Fillers are, in the healthy and happy vernacular, fillers are anything that gives you energy.
Oh, okay.
So as simple as, listening to music or going for a walk or taking a nap, or
do you include food in that, or is that not considered filler?
Yeah. I mean, it's a literal filler.
Right.
But in terms of like an emotional boost,
you try to steer away from food for emotional stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we absolutely have to have healthy nutrition in order for our brains to work well.
But it's used a lot in school, in elementary school and stuff right now. Treats are used as reward.
Oh, right.
And so
you got to be careful with that.
Yeah, that creates some issues, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. I use ice cream sometimes as my reward.
Right. And you certainly, I mean, I think you can get way too far. And we don't need to get too far into nutrition, but I think it's important to be able to enjoy. I mean, a nice bowl of ice cream tastes really good, and if
my soul needs ice cream,
right? I don't think you need to deny yourself of that in order to be healthy.
I had a gal one time that came to me that she was talking about weight loss. Right, we wanted to work on. She wanted to cut a few pounds, get stronger, and she was talking about her connection to food and her perspective on food and nutrition and things like that. And we had this conversation, and she had cut herself off from cookies. Cookies was one of her favorite things. And she's like, I have the perfect recipe that I love, and I make these cookies. And then now I can't do it. I get too much weight. I haven't eaten a cookie, my favorite cookie, for, I don't remember how long it was, a year and a half or something. And I was like, okay, I want you to go home,
have a cookie,
and I want you to make cookies and eat a damn cookie.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, she started bawling. And she's like, no one's ever told me to eat a cookie. And I'm like, okay, so there's this balance, right? In nutrition, like most people don't love to eat all vegetables.
Right, broccoli. Right?
And there's exceptions, but but to put that stuff and say, okay, if I'm going to eat stuff that I enjoy, I better also be eating things that actually give me what I need, the pieces.
Right.
When I teach kids about nutrition, I teach them that everything you eat has different molecules in it, right? And your body needs to make human molecules. It needs a whole bunch of, humans pretty advanced, right? So it needs a little bit of apple, and it needs a little bit of cheeseburger, and it needs a little bit of whatever, right? But
cookie.
Right. Sometimes if you're missing the cookie part. But to get all of them, right, is a much much healthier perspective, and say, okay, now that I'm getting a good variety, how can I raise the quality of that variety? Can I start to buy more food that's organic, if I'm into that, or if that's my thought process? How much can I cook? Right? Do I eat out a lot? Because when you eat out, a lot of the places they're interested in selling food,
right?
And so they're gonna make it taste really good, or the best they can, right? Which means salt and sugar and things like that to get you buying more, which is okay. Nothing against eating out, but when you start to get into leveling up that nutrition, you do end up cooking more.
Yeah,
you end up spending a lot more time in the kitchen and preparing food.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, and this goes kind of far, but I think creating an intimate relationship with food, where you're appreciating that,
a healthy relationship.
Where you're using it to benefit you, and it's this, I don't know if symbiotic relationship is the word, but something where you're feeling a connection to that thing because it's helping you, right? It's benefiting you to consume that thing.
Well, you mentioned fear earlier, and that's a huge variable in our lives, and pain motivates us, fear motivates us, and so whether it's around movement or whether it's around nutrition or whatever, fear is not what you want to be making decisions for you.
Especially food, right?
Right.
I'm afraid if I eat that cookie,
right,
I'm going to gain 10 pounds or something. Right.
Yeah. Which totally affects how, we're systems, and what you do in one system affects the other systems. And so often, issues around health, around weight, especially, have way more to do with our emotional health and what's going on there than our physical health.
Right.
So
I just thought of when you said that, it's like your car being afraid of gas or something.
Right.
Like,
Right.
no, like, no,
It
you
is.
gotta,
That's actually really good.
it's
It's a really good analogy.
yeah, it's really a important piece to have a healthy relationship with this food.
So how does somebody know if they're in zone 2?
So the talk test is probably the best, right? You could hold half the conversation, but you start getting too far into the conversation, you have to stop talking. Yeah. And you'd be like, okay. And so you get a few words out there, right? The talk test is really good. If you get in zone 3 or zone 4, you're not talking as much, right? Zone 3 is like you're getting a few words out, maybe a sentence, and then the other person has to talk. Zone 2, you can still talk, right? The next zone up. So I don't usually take anybody past about 90% of their heart rate, because your heart's then going so fast, right? It's pretty much fluttering.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have a lot of time to get a good stroke volume and manage your blood flow. So you can't hang out there very long.
Right. No.
Right? If you've ever been to that 90 plus, like you don't get to hang out, you get to tap into that and get back out of it. And so sometimes we'll do that just to maintain that higher heart rate work. It's not unhealthy to tap into that, but to hang out there, I don't have people hang out there. There's too many other waste products built and things when you're up at that high of intensity that your body has to manage and get rid of.
Yeah.
Lactic acid, people feel the burn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to get nauseous.
Right.
Right. That's you now have lactic acid pretty high in your system if you're getting nauseous from that. The only other thing I see with people getting sick during workouts is heat. If they get too hot, that will happen. Yeah. So working out in a temperature regulated area and keeping yourself cool, and then keeping it under a level that is manageable, but still maybe touching it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then like recovering from that, like you said, that repeat back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So awesome for your system. So great. So
what about movement and pain?
okay. So in what I found, and kind of what led me into this, was I was watching a client squat, and they had hip pain in the past, but we were trying to strengthen the hips, right? And so they were squatting, and as they squatted, I was spotting them, and I see their hips deviate during that squat, and I was like, this was quite a few years ago, and I had no idea what
was going on.
Why is that happening, you know? And so, and so I started to try to figure that out, and in the process of figuring that out, I learned most people's pain comes from a dysfunctional program, like a motor program. So they're trying to do that squat, and for some reason their body thinks it needs to shift during that squat, right?
Those neurological pathways are...
Yeah, they created them when they're little, right? You watch little babies learn to move, and they create intra-abdominal pressure first by screaming their heads off for months, right? And then they start to wobble their arms around and hit themselves in the face and like kick things, and they're trying to move their arms and legs while maintaining core pressure. Well, as they start to do tummy time and lift up their head, like their giant heavy heads, you're like, whoa, they're learning, their brains are logging those movements as failures or successes, and they're processing that movement and learning how to move without anyone telling them how, and they learn perfectly. It's the perfect model. So incredible. Yeah. And so what I try to do is get them back to those base programs or those base patterns that they learned perfectly when they were little, but forgot in the process of life. Either they got injured, a car wreck, or they fell down, or someone told them that they they were slouchy, right? And so they overcompensated and extended too much, and like we create a lot of this dysfunction. So taking people in and saying, okay, this muscle's too tight, this one's too long, too loose. Can we kind of shift those up a little bit? Oh yeah, now your pain's gone. That's great, right? Because it was just, say, a shoulder, the socket's pulled, right, into the edge of it, right? So it and the shoulder's not maybe the hip's a better example of this, but if that centration of that shoulder, using all the muscles that do that, all the rotator cuff and all the pieces that put that glenohumeral joint in the center, right? If it's not in the center, you will have pain. And then you'll try to in some sort of movement, right? Either a bench press or a row or an overhead press or something, you'll probably overhead press, you'll have a pain because it'll be in the edge, smashing up against something, crushing, then your body goes, hey, dummy, like stop doing it, like something's wrong.
Right.
You know, this pain is really a good indicator of like, okay, maybe I'm doing this wrong, or maybe something's not right, right? Kind of a gift to us, this
Right.
thing, right? Not when we're chronically hurt, doesn't feel like a gift, but if you can listen to it and correct the thing that is wrong, then your pain goes away.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of a cool indicator of straightening something out. But what I normally do is see that movement, notice where it's tight, help them learn how to stretch or move that piece that's not moving, help them flex the one that has been pulled on stretch for years or however long. And then their balance
Can be
now gives them
the equilibrium.
Yeah, now gives them a pain-free movement or a straight squat.
Right.
Where they're supposed to, or where they learned when they were little
Right.
how to squat. You watch babies squat, right? Or
Right.
lunge, or
Right.
something, right? They learn this trying to stand up and learn
That's
how to
true.
walk. If you pick up your kid and you hold their hands and you walk them, you're wrecking them. Like, let them figure it out.
Yeah.
And then they'll have really strong hips. They'll have really strong
Core.
core. Yeah. Yeah, they'll know what they're doing. If you walk them around, they're getting assistance and they're not learning themselves how to do it all. So,
That's an interesting thought.
but parents are like, my kid walked at 9.5
Right.
months or something. Like, wait till they have hip dysplasia and they're 30 now. But yeah, it's a really cool thing to see if you have kids, watching them learn to move.
Yeah, it is. It is really cool. And it's our systems, our brains are really, really smart and really good at doing things. And then we start overriding it. For me, it's difficult to know a lot of times with pain, whether pain is like, yeah, this is like you're getting better kind of pain, or you're breaking down kind of pain.
It is hard to know that.
And
it is hard.
It's hard for me to tell when I'm hurting, when I'm injuring something versus when I'm just, working hard or whatever.
Yeah. So
there's not a big difference.
I've had to learn that, right? The difference, because I do the same thing. I broke my leg one time, my tibia, actually a lot of bones in my leg on a four-wheeler. And when I broke it, it folded underneath the peg of yeah, it was awesome. But when it folded back, unknown to me or to the orthopedist, it pinched tissue in the bone when it folded back. And so when it healed the back part of the bone, but not the front.
Mm.
And we didn't know yet, right? We hadn't x-rayed the post thing. But I was going on a cruise and I had this cast on my leg. And I'm like, hey, doc, next week you're cutting this off. Can I just cut it off now? And he's like, yeah. He looked it up or whatever. He's like, yeah, go ahead. You'll be fine. It's going to hurt to walk on. And I said, well, is that going to hurt it? Like, is that going to cause problems?
Right.
And he's like, no. It's at the point.
Right.
Yeah. He's like, it's at the point that's going to stimulate healing. He's like, if you can deal with the pain, it'll help you. And I'm like, hey, if it helps me, I can take the pain, right?
I'm tough.
So I do this. I walk through. I got a cane and get on the cruise and go through this cruise, and man, it's just killing. Everywhere I go, it's just I know my leg's broken, or healing.
Right.
And so I get back for the post visit after this vacation. And he throws it on an x-ray and it looks like a banana. It's like this curved thing. And he's like, so you walk on it a lot? I'm like, yeah, I walked on it a lot. Like, I thought it was going to be good. And anyway, come to find out, we figured out that the front half of the bone hadn't healed. And so that taught me a lot. It taught me like, okay, this hurt so good, right? Beneficial pain. Here's the line, maybe, right? And so I think people have to go through that some sort of experience where they test that out and then realize that wasn't the helpful kind of pain. That was still causing me damage or whatever. So,
and if you're smart enough to learn, then
that's care to know,
Yeah, that is really good. I think one of the things in our conversations and kind of interactions across time, I think patience is one of the things that I think you're really good at, that I think a lot of people are not very good at when it comes to movement and exercise and healing. And it's it can be really hard to have the patience. I mean, like if you're starting out, who wants to walk for 40 minutes for 3 months,
Right.
Before we started our our recording here today, we were talking about sit-ups and and you go to the gym and everybody wants to do heavy weight and the most difficult kind of thing. And tell the story, will you? I mean,
well, I was just telling you about this guy that I knew that was a bodybuilder, really strong kid, right? He's young, he's probably 20, and he was doing these sit-ups on this almost vertical board with his legs hooked in, with a barbell across his back. And the barbell was empty, but 45 pounds across his back, right? And the sit-up is like that's pretty legit weight, Anyway, I was training the client, mid-40s gal, and we were doing. I agree. We were doing these sit-ups so that we coined the impossible sit-up, right? Kind of pioneered, or at least taught to me by this Russian guy who kind of built kettlebells in America. And anyway, she was doing these sit-ups.
Impossible sit-ups?
Yeah, these impossible sit-ups, and she only got a few. Well, I think 6 or 8 out of the set. We were trying for 10, and she got a few. And she was so frustrated looking over at this kid cranking out these huge things with this bar on his back, and he's up in the air, and she's like, I can't wait till I can do that. And I was like, you're stronger than he is in that movement. And she couldn't believe it, right? Watching that. And I said, hey, buddy, come here, right? And we were friends. And so he's a really nice kid. He comes over. I hook him up to these. What we were doing was I was having her flex her hamstrings during a sit-up. If you flex your hamstrings, it inhibits your hip flexors, right? Neurologically, you have these antagonists. And if you flex your bicep hard, your tricep has to shut off, right? Or your arm goes nowhere.
Yeah.
So same kind of responses happen through your whole body. When a muscle gets a lot of neurological activity, its antagonist gets it sucked away so that it can
do its job.
So the other one can pull, yeah. And anyway, you flex those hamstrings, the hip flexors are inhibited, requiring you to use just your abdominals, to sit up. And so she had gotten 6 or 8 or whatever, and I hook him up and he can't get one. Now, granted, he was already doing workout, but he sat there red-faced for way too long trying to get that thing up because he wanted it, And he, called me some name as he walked out. But we're still friends. He was shook. But she wanted a fist bump, because she had just done something that she thought this guy
bodybuilder.
Do. Yeah. And so creating a strong core doesn't have to be this, or even strength in general, doesn't have to be these big, flashy, huge weights on the thing. You can actually, for people that have reached this 40 mark, not that it's just a good mark.
Yeah.
It's a quarter of your life, we'll say.
Yeah. Well, the average life expectancy for American women right now is, I think, 81.2.
Okay.
For men, I think it's 78 or 77 or something. I can't remember exactly.
Okay, so half-ish.
About halfway through, yeah.
Half-ish.
On average.
And so really what it is, I would say maybe 35 is about the age that you want to start increasing your time under tension in your lifts, right? Where you're slowing these lifts down and your load has to drop, right? In my world, we call that the intensity. Your intensity has to come down on your load because you're increasing the time, but so much less risk and more benefit from this increased time under tension, especially in people who have 40 years on their life. Right. And so really, if you've been lifting and go to the gym all the time and do exercise, that's a good variable to change. There's different variables, right? Like restoration's a variable, load's a variable, time under tension is one of those variables. And so you play with these variables. That's a great variable to say, you know what, I don't usually do stuff really slow.
Right.
Maybe I should do my bench press, a 10-second press, right? So you're 5 seconds down, 5 seconds up. You will have to drop your bench press weight,
right,
guaranteed,
for sure.
Right? But way more stimulation to your chest, triceps, all of the bench press muscles involved than if you just bang out those regular 10 reps and your 3 sets and then on to your next thing, right? So
yeah, that's interesting. It's difficult to. Well, I think another thing that you said a minute ago is really important. The difference between between being healthy, right, and maybe having a fitness goal,
Yeah.
a health goal versus a fitness goal.
Yeah.
Because if your goal is to be healthy and you're doing things that are contraindicated or counterproductive to that,
Right.
then you're not likely to last in your exercise anyway.
Correct. You probably get hurt,
Right.
and then you can't exercise.
Yeah.
And then you're depressed, right?
Right.
Now you can't do the thing that helps you feel good.
Right.
And you're like, ah. So I always tell people, if you go a little bit too much versus almost enough, right? The little bit over is worse
Then
than the little
not
bit under, right? So if you do one less rep, what I say is save one in the bank,
Mhm.
right? You're doing reps. There's a theory of go to failure.
Right.
I disagree. I think you should save one. I think you should go all the way till you barely can get that one out, and then don't do that failure rep, right? Your brain likes that better, and you feel better
Mhm.
about it, right?
Yeah.
And you go to do that bench press, and you're pushing up, and then it goes back down. Your motor control center, your brain's like, oops, what went wrong?
Right.
Now it's like lit up. It's like, oh, we got to figure that out.
Yeah.
And so if you got a buddy spotting you and you do 4 more of those crappy reps or something, right, where maybe your spotter's not that great
Right.
or whatever, and you're kind of getting squirrely, those aren't helping you at all. They're just hurting you.
Yeah.
So save one in the bank.
Right. That's a good point.
And then some of the stuff that you do for fitness and health will cross over for sure, right? You have a fitness goal, you're working on that does oftentimes have health benefits to it too.
Sure.
Right? Or vice versa.
Right.
So finding the things that cross over is really fun. Kettlebells is an example of a tool that I think crosses over a lot, that you can do, say, a kettlebell swing. You could run that in a repeat type training, in a hip type style if you wanted, or in a consistent lighter weight, longer duration.
Do it either way.
Yeah. And so you can play with that a little bit, even in the same workout.
Right.
Where you can do a 100 reps and then drop it and do 50, and then drop it and do 25, and then drop it and do 10, and then 5, right? And then if you're really feeling it that day, climb back up, to the 100. That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of swings.
Yeah. But your load would change, right, as you went, and so you get a strength component. It's fun to work out in ways that benefit you in multiple different categories. Yeah, or multiple different ways. So
should we show them the impossible sit-up?
No way. We should one day. So it's a hams.
Can we do it?
Sure. Yeah.
You can embarrass me.
No, it's fine.
I'll be a guinea pig here.
So just lay on your back.
Okay. Let's see if they're gonna be able to make a decision.
And so there you go. And so what you want to do is just start with just a regular sit-up to feel that, right? Yeah, good. And so traditionally, right, someone will be holding your legs, right? And then you go to sit up and you got it, right? You got it. But if I say, okay, instead of holding your legs, I'm gonna try to pull your legs away. Yep.
And pull against it.
And then you keep that. Okay. So what he's doing is flexing his hamstrings, right? As I'm trying to pull his feet away, he's holding them back. And then he's gonna try to sit up while he keeps his hamstrings.
That is so hard.
Hold the hands. It is hard, right?
Well, so, I want to compensate like
but,
my
arm. But if I hold your legs, right?
Yeah.
Right. So what you're doing is you're just getting hip flexor.
Right.
Right. And you can hook bands on. Say you want to do this yourself, you could hook a band around your legs. And put, maybe if you want to make it real hard, you put like tennis balls under your feet and then bands around your legs so that your feet are slippery. Yeah. Right. And
so then you're just getting your core.
That's only abs. Yeah, that's cool. Mostly rectus abdominis, right? So if you want that 6-pack, that's a great way to get rolling on that and focus mostly on the 6-pack, right? Mostly on those abdominal front. Yeah.
So there you go. And yeah.
It is impossible, right?
It's an impossible setup.
Something pretty practice with that.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Well, I've really enjoyed visiting with you.
Yeah,
it's been a great, and hopefully you listeners have found benefit from Tanden. And as we start this new year, it's lots of people set exercise goals and movement goals and weight loss goals and all those kinds of things at the start of the year. And I wanted to just kind of give you some things to think about as you're starting this out, because if you start out well and if you do it right, it can be a real moment of change for your life as you start this new year, and you can incorporate health into your life and fitness into your life, and be successful. And so hopefully you found some beneficial tips and tools. Any kind of last minute things that you would add?
Yeah, I would say set small goals that are achievable. Get your big fitness goal or whatever. If you want to do the marathon or the certain weight or the competition or whatever, set that as a faraway goal. But then these little tiny incremental things every week or every 3 weeks or
like
whatever. Like if you're going to do a marathon, right? There's a lot of running programs you can get up online. But if you've never done anything like that, you want to start being able to be stable, right? So then you start with your breathing and you're walking and you build it up. If you're like, I go to the gym all the time, right? I do this stuff. Maybe find a professional you can get assessed by. Like, are your movements correct, right? Are you actually doing what you think you're doing when you're at the gym or when you're training, you know? So that's small goals that you can check off, get the dopamine hit, right? You can add that to your
as
stuff.
you're moving through.
And then I guess reward yourself as you go with some things, right? Find the things that do motivate you to do things you don't want to do. Most people don't love to work out. Like, it's hard and it's sweaty and it's kind of sucks. It's heavy things.
Yeah, you gotta get ready again.
You're sore. Yeah, it's like it's work. And so finding something that will kind of help you to like that or enjoy the end result or
make it
motivates you, right?
Yeah.
So.
And some of that is personality based. You know, those of you that are familiar with core and our temperament model, what's enjoyable for an R is different than what's enjoyable for an O. And so understanding your temperament and what you need to be able to succeed. You know, I mentioned variety. Variety is really important for me.
Yeah.
If I try to do the same thing every day for the next 15 years of my life, my O brain is like, that sounds like torture.
But others thrive on that,
right?
Like,
but yeah, an E,
it has to be the same,
right? An E does a really good job at executing and perfecting and tweaking this little tiny thing to make it better. And so understanding how your personality and how your brain works is also really important in this. But you can do it, and finding good help, and I would say, of course. It's really powerful to write down your goals and to rehearse those goals. And I would really encourage you to have one of those goals be health. Don't just think about the marathon that's coming this spring or this fall, or the bike race or whatever. I've got some goals this year that I want to do. But think about what to do to be healthy.
Yeah, 10 years from now or something.
Right.
Like, what are you going to look like or feel like, or because your body remodels itself constantly, right?
Yeah.
Like, our bodies are not the same as when we walked in this room.
Right.
We've breathed different molecules in. We've moved around. Like, our bodies aren't the same. It's adapted to being here.
Yeah.
And so,
which they're really good at.
Way good, right? So you say, okay, if I'm going to have a new, completely remodeled skeleton in 5 years or 10 years or whatever your body's running at, what do I want that skeleton to look like?
Yeah.
How can I change that? And work
to
on
be
that.
more,
to be myself, to be who I really am, right? Because we get
tweaked.
That's a good word.
So what can somebody do to improve their breathing? And you kind of went through that. Can they do something 3 times a day? Can they?
Yeah, so I recommend at least 2.
Okay.
And I do small things because I like small goals and achieving them. So I say 5 breaths.
Okay.
And if you chase, like we were talking about, you chase the exhale out tall and you breathe in wide, that's your first step. There's a lot of information online and different breathing techniques, right?
Tons.
Wim Hof has a great one. I don't know if I want to say excitatory, but it's an inhale, right? It's an almost forced inhale with a relaxed exhale. The opposite of that would be what we just talked about, right? Chasing that exhale out, squeezing that, letting your corset squeeze you and stretching that diaphragm for that kind of parasympathetic response. Yeah. Right? And so
great thing to do at night.
Yes. Yeah. Or when stressed.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So that's a good way to start. You might want to start with doing two sets or whatever of 5, during the day.
Yeah.
But do something and start taking control, because one of the biggest lack of hope is one of the biggest killers. And one of the things that most of us have going for us at the beginning of a year is it's a new start, and it's a good time to kind of leverage some of that hope. So hopefully this has been enjoyable. Appreciate you listening, and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.